Which farm type should you pick on your playthrough of Stardew Valley? Picking your farm type is the first real decision you have to make in Stardew Valley, and it's quite the toughie as it's one of the few choices in the game that can't be changed. Many of the different farm types have a lot of different benefits but also disadvantages, and it's important to know the differences before you choose your farm. So today, I'll be ranking all the different farm maps from best to worst. I've got close to 1,000 hours in Stardew, and I'm a decently good speedrunner, so I've got a good point of reference on this, but this still will be largely based on my opinion.
Now, if you don't know, the Standard Farm was the first farm to ever be added to Stardew Valley. Originally, the Standard Farm was the only farm that was in the game. So the Standard Farm is very interesting in the sense that it has the most tillable tiles of any of the other farms. And for that reason alone, it makes it good, because once you get into the end game, it is very useful for making the most amount of money. Obviously, if you're playing this min-max, you wouldn't have wheat here. You would have something like pumpkins or ancient farm. Other than that, the standard farm doesn't really have very many options for you besides just having the most tillable tiles. And once you get to the end game, like I said, crops are the biggest moneymaker of all by far, by a long and a way. So people consider their standard farm definitely to be one of the stronger farms just because it's so profitable. What I will say against the standard farm is that when you get to the end game, you accrue such an absurd amount of wealth that having 500 extra tiles is not super relevant. When you get to the end game, right, you can have all of these, you know, all of these sprinklers set up and they all make pumpkins, and then there's Junimo huts and they all will perfectly put out huge amounts of profits, but really, if you're like a casual player, that's gonna not mean too much to you. It's gonna be the difference of like a million G, you know? Which, you know, is good if you're like a min-maxer, but if you're just playing like more casually, that's not really make a big difference to you. The thing I will say towards the standard farm is that because it has no architecture or like anything else, you can customize it in whatever way possible. As you see, I've put these disgustingly ugly paths down that are just absolutely rancid, all these things. But it gives you a lot of freedom to customize and create. It's just like a pretty boring square farm. And for that reason, it's good, but in the early game, you will still struggle. You'll struggle more than you would with other farms. It's better towards the late game, in my opinion. So for that reason, it's still really good though, because it still has the most amount of tillable tiles, but I'm just gonna put it in the A tier, I think. The extra tillable tiles are really not gonna do that much for you, and especially now that we have Ginger Island, the standard farm I don't think is that important to get. Next up, we have the forest farm. Now, the forest farm is very interesting, I would say. Unlike the standard farm, it does have several amenities, and the cool thing about the forest farm is that you can get foraging in these little pockets over here, which is what makes this the optimal speedrun farm. That's why you'll always see us play on it, because the forage is valuable both for energy and for money. And also, in community center speedruns, the mushrooms will spawn here. And mushrooms are usually like pretty rare to get otherwise, especially if you go with the fruit bat cave. And also the blackberries and salmon berries and all those sort of things will spawn on this farm as well. The other gimmick that the forest farm has is the respawnable stumps. And I believe there's 5? I want to say. Oh wait, no, there's more. There's like 8. Dang, that's a lot of farm. That's a lot of stumps. You can also clear out this area and all this grass area. You can't grow crops on, but you can like build on it. Like so, like all throughout here and over here. And those are pretty much the 2 big sections. I like the forest farm a lot. I'm a big fan of the forest farm because hardwood is like in the end game is maybe not but one of the hardest resources to cultivate, because pretty much everything else on your farm can be automated. You can automate money, not like automate, but like you basically have infinite money. You have infinite iridium by going to Skull Caverns, but like hardwood, you only get like in Secret Forest, I think 24 a day. And if you have Lumberjack, it's like 32 or something like that. It's something insanely small. So having more hardwood stumps, when hardwood is, I would say, probably the least common resource in the game, ends up being really useful, especially now that you need like 500 to go to Ginger Island. I'll also say from a design standpoint, I just think the forest farm is very pretty. It is I believe it's the smallest farm 1400 is really a very small amount. And if you do see, a lot of this area can't even be optimized. There's like stuff here, like you won't really be able to put a sprinkler here. Like it's hard to optimize sprinkler layout here, right? Though I will say it does look very pretty, but you will be suffering in the late game. You won't be making as much, but still very pretty, very nice looking farm. And the foraging is really nice in the early game, which is really just what I remember more. Okay, because of that, I'm going to put the Forest Farm in the A tier as well. Forest Farm is very good, very solid as well, I would say. It just, the size really does work against it significantly. Now, of course, you can build sheds on your farm because there's like 1,400 non-tillable tiles as well, but that sounds really annoying, and the fertilizer is insane to cultivate. All right, next up, we'll do the Riverlands Farm. So I don't have a ton of experience playing on the Riverlands Farm, and you know what? I'll tell you why. The Riverlands Farm is by far the worst farm in the game. And you can see really just by looking at it why this farm is so terrible. First of all of these things are sectioned off and there's so little farming space. Even though I believe the Riverlands Farm has more tillable tiles than the Forest Farm, because of like the way everything is shaped, it's so hard to fit things here and it's almost impossible to get anything going. All of the farms that focus on fishing are dumb. And I'll explain why, because getting to fishing is not far. It is not that far to go and fish somewhere. And most of the time, even when you fish on the farms that have bigger fishing ponds than like the standard farm, right? You still end up fishing up more trash than you would if you just would go fish into town. And it takes, what, like 2 seconds to walk up to the mountain lake, which is a great source of fishing. And you don't even really need to fish that often. So it's just terrible in like so many regards. Aesthetically, I just think this is so ungodly ugly. I think these islands are really like weirdly shaped. I don't like this. How they're all shaped. I think building on things is really difficult. You're thinking now you maybe have a lot of room to build stuff probably. All around, I would say this is definitely the worst farm in lots of different ways, but aesthetically and like in min-max purposes. So for that reason, I'm gonna put the Riverland Farm in the D tier. Now the Hilltop Farm, I have some experience playing on the Hilltop Farm. It's okay. I will say, I do like the way the Hilltop Farm is designed. I do think that it is very aesthetically pleasing. The gimmick, if you don't know, of the Hilltop Farm is that it is a small quarry over here, and at the quarry, it spawns like different types of ores. Here you can see here, I just spawned on this farm, spawned a bunch of copper, and I believe the ores get better as you go deeper in the mines. Don't quote me on that, hold up. Oh, it depends on your mining level. Also, when I played through this game, there was a giant log here, I remember, and then I couldn't get to the quarry until the late game. And the quarry is already not that great. Getting the copper is like all right, I guess, but the stones respawn so slowly that it's really not worth it. And going to the mines is not that bad. Like, you're really only gonna spawn like see how this is all like copper and stone. And I'm sure, you know, if I had like mining level 10, maybe some iridium would spawn. But I've played a lot more on the other farms that do have quarries, and really it's like never worth your time. It's just like another thing to do. Also, what's really annoying is that I'm pretty sure this stump is always here, which just makes navigating this farm so insufferable. Now, I will say that this farm is very big. It has like, I think 2,900 tillable tiles, I wanna say? 2,100 tiles, which is like 1,000 less than the standard farm. But the shapes of everything are very uncomfortable, right? Like, how are you gonna fit a sprinkler here? Where are you gonna put a Junimo hut here, you know? But I will say it does look very pretty. I do like the whole hilltop theme, but it just is like very awkwardly shaped, I think. Now, when you start off in the Hilltop Farm, usually you have like this whole like area to set up shop in to like farm, but then eventually you start moving down here, and the stumps become a lot more common, I have found. Maybe this is just like a placebo thing, but I found it's a lot harder to build around the stumps on this farm than it is on like any other. Also, doesn't help that in your initial area, the greenhouses here. There's just so much going on, and like, it does have a lot of tillable tiles, but like look at this. What are you gonna fit here? You know? Even if you're not min-maxing, right? Even if you're just going for like a, you know, design aspect, what are you gonna put here, man? You know, it's like all these really awkward nooks and crannies, but the river is absolutely useless too. It just like takes up space. I genuinely think they could have got rid of the river and added like another, I don't know, something else here. But yeah, I'd say it's all right. It is still pretty big, and the quarry is all right. It's not like detrimental, but I'd say it's not the best. I'll put it in B tier. I definitely have some aversion to it, but you know what? Maybe it's like a C tier. Honestly, this could probably be like F tier, and then this could probably just be like a C tier, and then just get rid of B tier. I don't think anything's gonna really be in B tier. Okay, the Wilderness Farm. Wilderness Farm is probably the farm I have the least experience with, but I think that it is kind of dumb, honestly. It always feels like very out of place. The combat in Stardew Valley is not great, I'm gonna be honest. The fact that monsters spawn on your farm at night is really annoying. I think there are some rare monsters that only spawn on the Wilderness Farm, right? Yeah, wilderness golems drop like nothing. They drop pretty much crap. Definitely not worth your time to kill them. Having to walk around your farm and be worried about monsters, like, even into the late game sounds really annoying. And also, when I get into the late game, I do not, or even in the early game, I don't carry my freaking sword on me ever. Like, because there's no reason to, really. I think this farm is also not that big. It's okay, it has 2,100 tiles. Also, for some reason, it has these, like, I think because the monsters were not enough, they added these, like, fishing ponds. But like I said, fishing ponds are always not good. If you're new to the game, the Wilderness Farm is really hard. Yeah, I would not recommend this to begin. Here's the thing. I would not recommend this to a beginner player. Like, if you're a beginner, you do not want to play in the Wilderness Farm. And if you're like a pro, you don't want to play in the Wilderness Farm either because it just is annoying. You know what I mean? So I don't know who this is really for. And this layout is, I don't know, I find it atrocious. I mean, I guess it does have a lot of tillable tiles, but like, the monsters are not worth it. The monsters are terrible. So I think this farm is complete trash. Maybe D tier, actually. Maybe we do need a B tier, actually. Okay, and this can go into B tier. And then the Wilderness Farm can go into D tier for people who think they're playing Terraria. So the standard farm was in the first update, and then all the other farms got added in 1.1. And then in 1.4, when the multiplayer update dropped, Concerned Ape dropped a multiplayer-based farm called the Four Corners Farm. The Four Corners Farm was built, it was sectioned off into 4 different sections, with the intent being that you could, you know, you have your one friend build a cabin here, and then he builds over here, you know, you got one person build the thing over here, she builds over here, this, that, or the other thing, right? Which, when you play in multiplayer, this farm is really good to play on. Unless you're playing with, like, a significant other or something and you're like sharing money or something. But if you and your friends are playing whatever and you're not doing shared income and you're like, you know, building everybody's farm separately, this farm is a ton of fun to play on, because then also people's farms don't get mixed up. One person's got his farm here, you can go over, see what he's doing on his farm. You got, you know, you got one person and you can see the progression of everybody's farm. Also, if you play with 3 people, I usually have like this corner just be like freebie. Now, each corner of the farm is supposed to have a different like perk, I guess. This, I believe the top right has the most tillable tiles, and also has like the shipping bin, and like you get the big farmhouse. If you live in the bottom right, you get the quarry, which is like a smaller quarry than the one on the Hilltop Farm, but it still like spawns pretty good. As you can see, like there's like a gold here, but nothing insane. If you live in the bottom left, you get the worst one, and you get the fishing stuff, but it is good to set up crab pots, as you've seen I have here. Definitely the worst of the 4 perks. And then over here, a regrowable hardwood stump appears. Now, I do think that there should be 2 hardwood stumps that spawn here. I think that one is a little weak. Also, I think forage can spawn here, which is like really weird. Like, I've had a mushroom spawn right here. I feel like I've been a little hard on this farm maybe, but this is my favorite farm layout without a doubt. It has a ton of tillable tiles. Even if you're not playing in multiplayer, this farm is like probably the best to play on for so many different reasons. While the other farms have like the Riverlands farm has like 1,600 tillable tiles, as opposed to the standard farm's 3,400 tillable tiles. The Four Corners farm has, I think, 2,900, so it's like 500 less, so really not a big deal at all. And Ginger Island can make up for that discrepancy, or you could just put like crystallariums up here or something like that, or like kegs in the bus stop. In terms of profitability, it's like pretty much on par with the standard farm. You get the regrowable stump, which is really nice. Although it's only 1, it's still like, you don't have to go all the way to the secret forest, and it's a nice like quick way to get some hardwood. And then just in terms of designing, it's really nice for organization, right? Like, you see how on this farm I have all my crops here, I've I'm not very creative, but I have like more crops here. I've got my tappers here. I've got all my buildings over here. There's just like a lot you can do with this farm, and there's a lot of different ways to section things off. You know, maybe you can like build your, you can have tomatoes over here and star fruit over here and this, that, the other thing. It's just, I like it a lot. It's very nice and sectioned off, and it's very pretty. I feel like there's a lot you can do with in terms of designing, and it's just very profitable. So for that reason, I'm going to put the Four Corners Farm in the S tier. I think it's the best farm in the game. I think it's only a little bit better than the Standard Farm. Standard Farm could probably be like bottom of S tier, honestly, but it's a little boring. I think the Four Corners Farm is a lot more fun and aesthetically pleasing. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have the Beach Farm. So the conceit with the Beach Farm is that it is the largest farm in the game. 2,700 tillable tiles, and then 1,900 non-tillable tiles where you can build stuff on. You can put either machines there or kegs or barns, whatever. Now, seems really nice, you know? The flaw of the Beach Farm is that for some ungodly reason, Concerned Ape said he doesn't like the part of the game when you can put sprinklers down. So he wanted to make a farm layout that sprinklers don't work on. I don't know why. Who wants to just hand water like hundreds of crops every day? Is it supposed to be because like you're supposed to be encouraged to not do crops? Like, I guess I see what he's saying. Like, he's anti, like, the automation section of the game, you know what I mean? Where you just automate everything. But, like, I don't know. That's the point of Stardew Valley to me. I mean, the farm is beautiful, right? It replaces that, like, ugly yellow sand with this, like, cool beachy texture. And the beach farm can also spawn crates on the coast. And the crates can have, like, really cool things in it, like, fertilizer, coffee, gemstones, I think, and a couple stuff like that. So it has a lot of things going for it, but you can plant sprinklers here, but besides right here, you cannot plant sprinklers anywhere on this farm. You have to hand water everything. And that is just like insufferably bad. It's so detrimental. Though I will say, whenever I do like challenge runs and stuff, I do always play on the beach farm because it is the biggest. And I do think it is like probably the most pretty. I do think it's probably the prettiest farm. The water looks really nice. It's too big. It's extremely vertical. If you have to traverse all the way down to get down to Cindersnap Forest, it takes forever. It's too long. Like, I understand that it's supposed to be bigger to compensate for its other flaws, but it's too big. Like, Concerned Ape said it's supposed to be for, like, veteran players, but, like, it's not making the game harder in any way. Does that make any sense? Like, there's nothing more difficult that it's adding to the game. Just not having sprinklers, it just takes up time. And I guess, okay, then you have no energy, but, like, by the time that you have like a full farm of sprinklers, you have so many ways to restore energy. It's definitely very interesting, and I'm glad that it's in the game. I do think it's very pretty, but it's pretty bad. I'm gonna have to put it straight into the F tier. I would recommend that somebody plays on the Riverland farm before I recommend somebody plays on the beach farm. Though I will say I do have a soft spot in my heart for the beach farm. I do think it is cool. I do think that a lot of challenge runs are done with it because it's just like interesting in that way. Yeah, besides that, for a casual playthrough, it's pretty bad. But if you've been playing a lot of Stardew, I do think there's some benefit to trying out all these farms in B tier and above. But I would almost never recommend that you play on these farms in D and F tier. And that's about it